So there is, in my opinion, a big problem to be found at the heart of BookTube. But I don't think this just applies to BookTube. In fact, I know it doesn't. This also applies to YouTube at large, and you can extend that even further out into social media and internet discourse and generally the entire internet discussion space. But because of where I am and what I do, it's a problem that I see a lot on BookTube. Speaking as a booktuber, as someone who spends a lot of time talking to commenters, someone who expresses their opinion online, blah, blah, blah. And this frustrating issue, I think, comes from the dissonance that exists between real lived life and the act of posting things online. Because I'm sure you've heard people talk about the fact that once you post something online, it never goes away. Posting things online has ruined people's careers. Posting jokes that are in bad taste, or opinions that were taken the wrong way, or I could go on and on and on. This is not a video about cancel culture. It's a video about opinions and lived experiences. And I was inspired to make this video when I received a question for a Q&A video that I did recently. And that person asked me, and I'm paraphrasing here, what it is that might make me change my opinion about a book or an author outside of that author revealing themselves to be problematic in some way. So we're not talking about J.K. Rowling or Neil Gaiman or anything like that. We're talking about times when opinions have changed. And they cited an example of a book that I talked about positively and then suddenly didn't. Or at least it seemed sudden from their perspective. And I think that this question highlights an issue with BookTube, with YouTube, with social media, in the fact that people change. Or maybe I'm being naive here. Maybe other people don't change as much as I do. I personally enjoy change. I change and grow a lot. In fact, if I went back to my hometown tomorrow, nobody there would recognize me. I'm quite different now. So I like change. Change is great. And with that attitude comes an expectation in yourself, of yourself, that your feelings and opinions will change. That might happen because other people open your eyes and convince you of different things. It might happen because you become a different person with time. You have an experience that changes you. A big one or a small one or a series of inconsequential things that over time just reframe how you see the world. It might be that you read something. It might be that you had a feeling about something and over time you just grew stale. It might be that you outgrow something. There are many nuanced and subtle ways in which someone can change their feelings, their opinion, their relationship to something. But when you post things online, like YouTube videos, like 3 YouTube videos a week, like I do, everything becomes kind of juddery. I live my life 24/7. I am in my body, in my brain. Unfortunately, I hate this brain. I am here all the time. But when you look at my channel, what you see are staggered videos, little snippets that have been filmed and edited alone in this room, and they represent a moment in time. But that moment in time, while frozen in the channel, is not something that remains frozen in here. I continue to change and grow. I think a great example of this, and I mentioned it in the Q&A video, is my relationship to Haruki Murakami. I used to really like Murakami's novels. I've celebrated them. I've read quite a few of them. I've recommended them. I've done review videos and recommendation videos and listicles about Murakami. But that was a long time ago. And it took me about a year between making a few recommendation videos and enjoying Murakami to souring and falling out of love with his fiction and realizing that his books are misogynistic garbage. I read 1Q84 and I was staggered by the fact that other people, mostly men, don't see the disgusting, blatant misogyny in his fiction. And what's interesting is that I didn't see it for a while. It's almost like a spell is cast. Some people notice it immediately, and good for them. I didn't. I read like 5, maybe more, Murakami novels and just didn't notice the blatant sexism in his work. And then slowly the scales fell from my eyes and I was like, oh my god, his work is horrendously misogynistic. It's cruel, it's nasty. It's also childish. It's edgelord shit. It's teenage boy shit. I don't like it at all. And this is something that happened technically, gradually, but also it felt pretty quick. You know, I kind of just realized, oh my god, What am I reading this for? It's terrible. And so suddenly I was making videos that make fun of his fans, that call out his misogyny, that are scathing reviews of terrible books that he's written. And if you look at my channel, in isolation, it looks like I went from being his #1 supporter to being his #1 hater. And you could create conspiracy theories about that if you wanted to. People do, about much bigger YouTubers than me. Hey, this person said something, now this is happening, what's going on? There's something deeper at play here. X-Files music, ooh. And like, no. Sometimes it's just that people change. And people who don't change a lot, maybe they get confused by that. Maybe if you're someone whose opinion doesn't change and shift and grow, if you're someone who doesn't experience a lot or read a lot, maybe you don't know that people can change and carry on changing. And this is such an issue that I have with the BookTube and broader YouTube space, is that when your opinion changes, people get into a habit of calling you out or getting confused by it. And I'm like, do you not change? Now, focusing specifically on that question that I was asked, that I've been just mulling over for days now, in their question, the person brought up this book, The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is a dark romantasy novel. And I remember doing a romantasy recommendation video like 6 months ago, where I listed 5 or so romantasy books that suck, like A Court of Thorns and Roses, Fourth Wing, Quicksilver, etc., etc. And a few others that are good. Feybound, Hurricane Wars, etc., etc. And this is one of the ones that I recommended. I don't remember what I said in that video, but then recently in another video, I offhandedly mentioned the fact that this isn't a good book. And so that person clung on to that and said, well, hey, what's going on here? You recommended this book, now you're saying it's bad. And that isn't necessarily because I've changed. It's because a person's opinion doesn't have to be two-dimensional. Our opinions about, especially a work of art, and art is so often layered and has good things and bad things about it, your opinion can be very nuanced and difficult to express, and it's going to have caveats, and it's going to have layers and layers to it. So, talking about this book specifically, I've recommended it because it's really fun. It has decent enough world building for a romantasy book. It's got vampires, it's full of action. The characters are kind of charmingly silly in an almost Buffy the Vampire Slayer way, but not half as clever as Buffy. There is plenty about this book that you can enjoy. I had fun reading this book. I actually finished it. I read it cover to cover and I went, that was fun. It's simple fun. It's not going to change your life. When I say I liked this book, I don't mean I liked it in the way that I like Clara and the Sun, or Our Share of Night, or In Ascension, or any of the other profound novels that have changed me fundamentally as a person. If I say that I recommend The Serpent and the Wings of Night, I'm not putting it at the same level as Claire Keegan's books, obviously. But if you break The Serpent and the Wings of Night down into its disparate elements, there are things in that book that I thought were good and fun and exciting, and things that led me to recommend it, especially over something as boring as A Court of Thorns and Roses, something as toxic as Quicksilver, or something as terribly written as When the Moon Hatched. Those are trash romantasy books, and by comparison, The Serpent and the Wings of Night is competently well written, it has consistent world building, it has fun and engaging characters and relationships, and it's full of action that I enjoyed. It is derivative, it is shallow, it's not going to change your life, it's not great high art, it's not profound literature, but it's decent. But it's also trash. It can be both of those things. It is a trash novel. It just so happens to be a well-written piece of trash. It's shallow romantasy. It's a beach read. It is a book with such hilarious, awkward spice that I could barely contain my laughter. The physical romance scene, I'm being careful with my words here because YouTube, but the scene of physical intimacy between the two characters, where they really get down and dirty, that scene is laughably cringe and awkward. And I mean, I like men sometimes, occasionally. I'm much more into women, but occasionally a man comes along that makes me turn my head. Lou Wilson. Oh, Lou Wilson. But if you've read this book, then you know what I'm talking about. In that scene between these characters, she gets down on her knees and worships at the altar of his lighthouse. I hate this self-censorship stuff. And it is absolutely flabbergasting. It is so cringe, it is so awkward, but it's absolutely hilarious. And it highlights the fact that Serpent and the Wings of Night is trash, but it's fun and funny trash. I laughed all the way through that scene. Some people read that scene with one hand, if you know what I mean. I read it and laughed and read it out to my partner, and we had a good chuckle about it. I still recommend it. It's still a fun book. So when I say it's trash, it's bad, it is bad. Doesn't mean I hated it. But I'm also not saying that it's a guilty pleasure, that I like it in spite of itself. There are enough things about it that I like and would recommend, depending on who I'm recommending it to or what mood they're in and what they're looking for, blah, blah, blah. Because art is complicated. So my answer to this whole situation is that 1, people change, and 2, an opinion about a work of art can't just be a statement. This is a problem that I have with short form content, with TikTok, with short tweets on Blue Sky. It's very difficult to get across nuanced opinions and feelings about a piece of art, a film, a novel, whatever it might be. It's hard to do that in a short amount of time. Just listing off recommendations does not get across the complexity and dimension of any piece of art, be it good or bad or anywhere in between. A novel that's 500 pages long, that has all of these elements of character and world building and themes, of its writing quality, of the things that inspired it, of the genre that it's in and its place within that genre, of all of these different things that go into making a novel. You can't just say it's good or bad sometimes. Sometimes you can. Sometimes a book is so terrible, you can just list off everything it fails at. All of the terrible things about it. The world building is bad. The characters are bad. The relationships are terrible. The themes are non-existent. It's written by a 2-year-old with a crayon. It's derivative. Whatever it might be. You can do that. Of course you can. There are terrible books that fail at everything. And there are great books that succeed at everything. Everything they set out to do. You might read a perfect work of science fiction that succeeds within its genre and even transcends its genre. Of course, that has happened so many times. I mentioned In Ascension earlier. That is a sci-fi novel that transcends science fiction. And I don't mean to do a disservice to science fiction when I say that. I love sci-fi. So many of the greatest works of fiction we've ever had are sci-fi. But In Ascension is the kind of book that would appeal to someone whether they like sci-fi or not. Art is complicated. It's why I like to talk about one book for 20, 30, 40 minutes sometimes. Because I have a lot to say. Because I like to open a book up and look at the cogs and think about how it makes me feel in multiple different ways. I'm complicated because I'm human. I'm not an especially complex person. I'm not an especially thoughtful person. I'm not an especially clever person. I don't know, take my time to look at a book or a video game or an album or a film or a TV show and think about it and see what's good and see what's bad. And also, I think a lot of people sort of latch on to something. They make something their personality. This is the problem with fandoms. Like, for example, I've been playing a brand new video game, Ghost of Yotei. It's a good game. I have a few issues with it, but overall I think it's wonderful in a lot of different ways. It is a sequel to Ghost of Tsushima, which came out in 2020. And IGN did a video review of Ghost of Yotei, and they said that the protagonist, who is a woman named Atsu, who is voiced by Erika Ishii, who is amazing. I love them. Really fantastic comedian and writer and podcaster and all sorts of things. I'm really proud of Erika Ishii for what they've done with this character. Anyway, by comparison, IGN said that this character, Atsu, is a big improvement over the protagonist in Ghost of Tsushima, Jin, who was kind of two-dimensional and kind of dull. He's a samurai who's obsessed with honor, and he's just not that dynamic. Oh my god. I'm not joking when I say hundreds upon hundreds of comments that just focused on that bit of the review. Not anything else, not the music, not the visual design, not the gameplay, not the world design, not the visual spectacle of it, not all of the amazing things that go into what makes this game good and how the review was a breakdown of all of these different elements. No. Jin was boring. And because people have attached themselves to this game, because they feel like this game is an extension of their personality, they feel called out. They like Jin. So if you say you don't like Jin, or if, worse, you claim that Jin was a boring character, these people feel like they're being told that they're boring. They're being called boring. They like Jin, this person says gin is boring, therefore they are boring. That's how they see it, and they're wrong. It's juvenile. But I understand. It's a thing that we do. If someone tells me that my favourite film is actually a bad film, I feel like I'm being called out. My taste is being called into question. It makes me feel stupid and naive for liking this film. It makes me wonder if I'm wrong. It makes me feel like I'm being attacked. I understand it. I sympathise with people who do this. The people who are angry at the IGN reviewer for saying gin's boring. I understand why they do it. I feel similar things. But I try to keep a cool head and say, okay, but there are other things. And these things are not so two-dimensional. They are nuanced. Gin's boring, but what about the other things in the game that are good, etc., etc.? Art is complicated and people are complicated, and art is communication. Art is a relationship between the creator and the viewer, player, reader, listener, whatever we are. Art is a conversation, and through that conversation there are so many things that you pick up, things you miss, things you ignore, things you like, things you don't like. And this is a problem that I have with internet discourse, with YouTube, with BookTube, whatever. It's the problem of making a statement into a camera, posting it online, it gets frozen in that video, or that tweet, or whatever it is. It gets frozen there. And because you didn't spend an hour going into the nuance and detail, expanding on that opinion, of saying, yeah, The Serpent and the Wings of Night is trash. But despite being trash, there are all of these things that I like about it, and all of these things that it fails at, but these things that it succeeds at, and I go on for an hour about those things. If I don't do that, because it's an offhand comment, or it's part of a list, whatever, depending on the format and the context, people are going to go, wait, you said this in one video and this in another. What's going on? Well, either I changed and my opinion changed, like I said with Murakami, or the book has good and bad elements, and depending on what point I'm making, example I'm making, the context of a video at any given time, I might use that book as an example of something that succeeds or something that fails, depending on the angle. If I'm saying A Court of Thorns and Roses is shit, read something better, I might use that as an example. I'm not saying it's good though. It's not good compared to other great romanticises that I've read recently, like Catabasis, or The Knight and the Moth, or Divine Rivals. Those books are within the same genre, but they're better. So A Court of Thorns and Roses is at the bottom. Serpent and the Wings of Night is above it. So in that way, I can say, yeah, this is good compared to this. But it's not as good as the ones above it. So it's bad compared to those. There are so many different ways to look at this. And so as a YouTuber, it's one of the things that I hate about this platform, this approach to art criticism and conversation, is you make a statement and that's it. Whereas in real life, if you're at the pub with a friend and you give your opinion on Star Wars, you have a real-time conversation that then plays out, where you and that person exchange your feelings, get into a heated discussion, or maybe something a bit more civilized, and your opinion might change in real time, or you can change their opinion, or you can come to an understanding. You'll learn new things. Your perspective will shift and morph into a different shape. That can't happen when you stand in front of a camera and give an opinion. It gets frozen in time, and people take that and they store it away in their mind. Because how could I blame them? It's what I said. I put it in a video. But the fact is, 6 months later, I might feel differently because I've grown and changed as a person. Or maybe in that moment, I failed to mention the other things about that book I was talking about, whatever it may be. I think those are the two different angles that we need to look at. The fact that people change, and the fact that art is three-dimensional and nuanced and complex. And you can't talk about everything all at once. So that's my big problem with BookTube and YouTube and social media in general. Tell me if you agree. Tell me your thoughts and your feelings in the comments. I will be there. I will respond. I will have a conversation with you. I'm really curious to hear what you think. If you've agreed with this, hit the like button. I don't usually say that, but it does help. If you think I'm clever and have good things to say, then you can check out my book, Managing and Other Lies, a collection of queer horror stories. You can go into the description and order a copy. Thank you. And if you think my channel is worth something, if you think that my channel matters within the YouTube BookTube space, then you can support me on Patreon. By giving me $1 a month or $3 a month, you guarantee that my channel continues, that I can go on saying things that hopefully matter and are good and useful. I hope that they are. And if you think that they are, and you have $1 to spare every month, throw it my way. Support me on Patreon. I'd really appreciate it. My patrons are the best people. So thank you in advance, and subscribe for books.